Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Rage Against the Regime Radio, a show for patriots, defending the Constitution at every turn and uncovering the truth. We cover topics mainstream media doesn't dare to touch, where status quo gets taken to task. FB page at RATR on Twitter, Rage Against the Regime Podcast at gmail.com. Call our blog talk line at 929-477-3565 or text us at 256-344-7287.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Becky Williams with Rage Against the Regime podcast. Today I have a special guest. Our special guest is a gentleman by the name of Aaron Stair. He has dedicated the last year and a half of his life to guarding the border, securing the area down in the state of Arizona. Welcome to the show, Aaron. Say hi to the people.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. We sure can. Welcome to the show, brother.
It's an honor.
How are you doing today?
I appreciate you. I'm doing good. I'm doing real good.
Brother, we have situations down here in Texas, and the reason I reached out to you to ask you to come on the show today, we have situations down here in Texas where we're having our militia members, brothers and sisters like yourself, who've gone down to try to secure the border, detour the influx, that are being attacked on a physical level by the foreign invaders coming across. And Karen put me in touch with you, and it indicated to me that you experience, or your people in Arizona are experiencing the same issues without any government or local law enforcement reaction to the act of war that's actually being committed on the American citizens by these foreign invaders. Can you share some of the information with us about your experiences on the border there in Arizona over the last year and a half?
Absolutely. Actually, to first start off, I belong with a organization called Arizona Border Recon. And just to give a little insight on that is we do a lot of reconnaissance and visual. So confrontation does happen, but a lot of what we do is stealth and recon. So most of the time they don't even know we're out there.
Let me ask you a question, brother. What's your background?
I am a civilian.
Okay.
Non-military, just patriot, somebody that feels like they need to step up and do what's right.
We sure appreciate what you're doing. Are you guys getting any assistance with funding for your program down there in Arizona?
It's 100% funded by us, by the volunteers. No funding whatsoever. We use GoFundMe accounts for each personal person.
Okay. So you do. So you do have a way for folks. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's all on our own dime.
Okay. So you don't have any GoFundMe accounts that people can reach out and help you folks?
Yes, we do.
Oh, you do?
We do.
Oh, okay.
Yes. We do have GoFundMe accounts.
Fantastic. We've made several attempts, and I have pretty good platform that I'm able to speak from, where I reach literally over 30 different countries and listening audience of over 500,000 individuals. It looks to me like we're soon to be approaching 750 to 1 million listeners. The show is growing rapidly, but we have made several attempts to put GoFundMe programs in place for our people here in Texas, and it fails miserably for the most part. Are you guys having any success out there, getting any backing or financing through your GoFundMe account?
on the GoFundMe account, they have, on my personal one, they have taken it down out of a search. It still exists if I copy and paste the link and send it to somebody or social media share it. But they are filtering patriotic GoFundMes. So
wow. Okay.
If you go to GoFundMe.com and look at Back to the Border, that's what I have it labeled. It will show up in any kind of search whatsoever.
Well, that's interesting. That would be governmental, and that explains why we've had issues with getting funds down to our militia brothers and sisters on the border. That's the first I've actually heard an explanation as to why we've had such a miserable response. Literally, we can't, most accounts down here, we can't raise more than $800 to $900, and that's promoting it as heavily as we possibly can to get folks to contribute. So
I mainly depend on friends and family and social media that where I can put that link out and they can click on it. It does go to it, so it still exists. But it's very sad that, just anybody can't just do a search on it. It's covered.
Absolutely. Listen, I have some great concerns. I know that the border here in Texas is wide open. And running for the governor of Texas in this last election, my platform was secession. And because of that platform, I had to have many councils. Obviously, if I were successful in that run, we would have become a new republic, a new nation, essentially, and I would have needed our own military to guard the nation. And in that council, I had several members that were active duty Border Patrol operating here on the Texas border. And I obviously got firsthand intel on the truth about what their directive was from a Muslim Brotherhood-run DHS program that the usurper put in place with the DOD and the DOJ to assist and not resist. Are you experiencing the same issues in your own state?
I'm actually from Texas, and I travel to Arizona to participate in this recon operation. Okay.
Are they open borders without regard to the citizens by your experience on your border? Like
huge open gaps. I mean, it's open all the way across. Like you could have a checkpoint and they'll have a fence for 2 miles to the left and to the right, and then it'll just stop into a cattle fence, just barbed wire.
All right. Well, I would assume because DHS is running the entire border operation that would be the case, but I wanted to hear it firsthand from you. Have you yourself encountered a physical confrontation, or your groups down there? Are you experiencing loss of life or injury by these foreign invaders when they come across?
We do have confrontation. We have no losses of life or any kind of serious wounds, but there are confrontations, and happens on a daily basis. It's happening right now.
Okay. You had stated that you are from Texas and you travel to Arizona.
That's correct.
Okay. And is there a reason why you've dedicated your time to the Arizona border as opposed to the Texas border?
The whole border does need to be secured, but this specific spot is one of the hottest spots for the cartel and pushing product and human trafficking. I can't say it's worse than Texas, but it is definitely a hot spot, so that's where I spend my time.
Okay, well that's good to know. I mean, that's great information. I know that we just recently, this past week, we had an individual on patrol at Camp Lone Star that was injured severely by one of the foreign invaders, and then there was an influx of invaders that came through after he was injured in that spot, that particular area. He suffered 6 broken ribs and a ruptured spleen. These are, in fact, acts of war that are being committed. These are foreign invaders that are crossing the border illegally, and if they, in fact, use any weapon, I don't care if it's a pocket knife, that is the definition of an act of war on a U.S. citizen. And we are seeing no response from our local law enforcement, our federal enforcement, from our government, our state government. There's no response. We actually have unarmed National Guard down at the border who have been given the directives by the federal government. This is our state guard not being deployed to do their job, but the National Guard, by directive of Obama's regime, to basically go down there and help assist the influx. What are your thoughts on this, brother?
Yes, there is absolutely something that needs to be done. My thoughts are, it's a mess. It's a real mess, and our border needs a lot of help. It needs to be funded. I wish more people would see exactly the human misery on the border coming across. And even on our own side, there is a small war happening. So it needs some attention.
I would agree with you. I was holding this discussion with a couple of gentlemen last week, and this is, in fact, if you wanted to call it a soft war, I believe it's a little bit more aggressive than a soft war. The drug cartels in Texas have essentially taken control of many of the border towns. The local law enforcement to the courts are corrupt. We have landowners that have been either threatened or paid off to be a port of entry without resistance from these drug cartels. You can imagine that this, the way I see it, this individual that injured this gentleman down at Camp Lone Star this past week is now running rampant in America somewhere, and he has no regard for life. He was not opposed to injure or kill this individual in order to make entry into America and to provide that entry for the influx that followed behind him after his act of war against an American citizen. And they're here. I mean, they're here in our streets. We lose more lives in 1 year at the hands of these foreign invaders than we lost in a 12-year Iraqi war, and this is of great concern to me. I'm angry. I'm furious.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
Me too. I am too. I'm agreeing. Yes, sir.
I would say that this is a war that's been waged against the people by the American shadow government. It has, I would think at this point, the coup d'etat has been completed against America. You've got a DOJ who is a convicted felon with an arms charge straight from his college years, serving over the Department of Law and Enforcement here in America, and a criminal sits as POTUS, and we are seeing that the terrorists are being assisted. Speaking of terrorists, and this is why I brought this up, have you seen reports in Arizona of actual links to Al-Qaeda or Hamas or any of the other groups, ISIS? Any reports
Absolutely.
that you have? Could you
Absolutely.
share some of that?
I have not been on patrol myself and came across this, but in previous reconnaissance from our group, have got in contact with Border Patrol, and ISIS has definitely been spotted on our border in Arizona.
You know, about 4 years ago in Arizona, may not even have been 4 years, but I do believe there was a local news station in Arizona that had reported over 100 Hamas had come through the Arizona border. These are reports that your mainstream media will not give us. Their directives are also being handed down by government. What is Arizona's governor doing to fight back against Obama and his illegal amnesty directive?
As far as I know, absolutely nothing. Not one thing.
Wow, that's discouraging. And you guys don't have a program then where, you know, DPS, and I'm throwing some quotation marks up here because it's actually a joke, DPS or any kind of state or National Guard is not assisting on the border down there as well. It's just militia and that's it?
There is Border Patrol, so there are agents out there that we do work hand in hand with as far as exchanging intel, GPS coordinates, different scout sites up in the mountains and the desert that help to push these crews through and provide radio contact to the mules down on the ground. But it's just Border Patrol.
Do they have the same capture and release directive that they have here?
They catch and they do deport in Arizona. They do deport, but it's so porous that it's a joke. They come right on back.
That is terrible to hear. I mean, I really hate to hear that. I know we really haven't heard much out of New Mexico. New Mexico has stayed pretty quiet, pretty neutral. I've not talked directly to any militia members down in the New Mexico area or the California border. Again, we know that the DHS is in control of all Border Patrol for the United States. We're getting indications as well that we've got an open gate in the Canadian area. Something that most people may not be aware of is in the sequester that Obama called 3 years ago, many governmental agencies were shut down during that sequester, and they cut pay to the military and law enforcement. And but of course, Obama still had his $1.7 billion worth of vacation on the American people that year, and Congress took their raise but the Canadian border for 6 weeks was wide open. We had no Border Patrol whatsoever on the Canadian border, and that is fact. I got that off the .gov side at the time of the sequester. I was curious myself to look and see where the true cuts were coming and what detriment it might be to the American public. And that's when I came across the fact that they had a wide open border, that all Border Patrol pay was cut at that time. Which is very discouraging because we've had many reports of terrorists trying to bring in carloads of explosives and cross through the Canadian border into America. I'm going to make a suggestion, and you can give me your thoughts on this. I believe that the border has been opened up with purpose for the final takedown of America, for these foreign invaders to come into America, these terrorists. In Texas, one of my Border Patrols in just his sector last year had 33 different countries come through his border in 1 month. Foreign invaders, you know, it's a misnomer that these are all Mexicans. Are you guys seeing a lot of other foreign nationals coming through that border that you can easily identify as OTMs?
Absolutely. It's not race-related at all. There are the Chinese coming through. Absolutely. It's not limited to one race.
I would suggest this because here we're not getting a whole lot of information on mainstream media. In fact, we're getting none concerning the border issue. It's a non-issue as far as media is concerned. And that's been done with purpose by government. I would suggest that word was put out with intent for these people traveling from the Middle East, the Orient, from all over the world, even Africa. We've had a report of them coming through from the African nations through the Mexican border. I would suggest that somebody had to give them a green light to go from other countries so far away. How else would they know to come through an open border in Mexico?
Well, that's an interesting point. That's a great question.
I know that I've listened to several of my fellow talk show hosts, and nobody has brought that into the conversation. But that would certainly be an interesting question to find out the answers to. We know that in the South Americas and even in Mexico, they not only broadcasted on the radio, but also had flyers and advertisement for mules. They called them escorts, of course, to bring people in from Venezuela, Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, in through Mexico. And we know that the Mexican government was working with the heads of government from those different countries to give free port of entry through Mexico in order to invade America. We also had reports of this humanitarian crisis that Obama created with purpose, obviously, that there were unaccompanied minors that had traveled through two countries to come into America. And the reports that I was getting out of the Texas border here in my state was that less than 3% were actually minors, that the majority of the individuals that they saw coming through the borders were actually males, ages 18 to probably mid-30s. Those are the ones that are really traveling through freely. And then, of course, you had your buses that were being brought in. They'd load them up across the border and bring them in, and they've been flying them in, and we've got proof of that. Is this the same thing that you saw in the Arizona area? Did you see a lot of minors coming through there?
You are correct on that. Not a lot of children, not a lot of women. These are full-grown adults. Anywhere 18 and above. In my time out there, I've never seen a child crossing and looking for salvation. It's all been cartel mostly, pushing their drugs. They can't get enough across, so it's all mules and grown people, no kids.
Do you believe that this government is involved in that drug cartel industry? The Fast and Furious and some of the other programs that they've implemented, not just under the Obama administration. We saw it under the Clinton administration and under the Bush administration. Do you believe, as I do, that this is the reason why the drug cartels have thrived so easily on our borders?
I do believe that. I'm right there with you, brother.
I spoke, interestingly enough, I spoke to a gentleman who is in military intelligence. He's now retired, and I actually had him on my show a couple of months ago. And some of the things that he told me about soldiers being deployed to mine the poppy fields and to keep guard over them in other countries, and even some of the stories that he told me about the drugs being put into the body bags of the soldiers that were being brought into the U.S., back into the USA to be buried, even in some instances in the very cavities of the body, was just mind-boggling to me. And that's why I asked that question, because I do believe that the American government, I believe that's a big industry for them. That's billion-dollar industry for them easily, probably on a monthly basis, not on an annual, because it just makes no sense to me why we have the largest, well, we don't anymore. We're down, I think we're number 7 now in the world under the Obama regime. But we did have one of the greatest military forces in the world, and we could not deploy enough military to that border to assist to keep that out of America. And now it's like Katie barred the door. I mean, all hell is broken loose, and Americans are suffering for it. I work closely with a young lady from Vocal, which is a program that is really exposing the child trafficking and kidnapping, illegal kidnapping, medical kidnappings that are going on across the nation, with our children being yanked from homes that there is no abuse or neglect in, because it's a money maker for them. And we have on more than one occasion exposed that at some times in certain, it can even be in not even a state, then a county, literally hundreds of children, the CPS will tell the parents, well, we don't know where they are. These children are being trafficked as well for purpose of prostitution or the pleasure of an adult. And they're being placed in harm's way, and many children are dying in the custody of foster care. But we're seeing that a lot of this trafficking is actually going back through Mexico. They're taking our American children that they have stolen, essentially kidnapped, and there's big money in it. It's a huge governmental program that generates money through the courts and through illegal activities. So we're not just seeing the trafficking coming back in from the Mexican border and the Canadian border with these children. And the reason I'm bringing this up, you mentioned that the point of interest for you was drug cartel and trafficking, human trafficking that is occurring. And I want you to know that we have as much going out of the country on that trafficking issue as we do coming in. And a lot of these people that are assisting our government in this trafficking are, in fact, foreign nationals that they have a program with, just like they do with the drug cartel.
Very possible. Very possible.
We've done a lot of homework. Mary Tyndall is the young lady I work with. She's the regional director for Vocal, and she has actually worked on that program for over 11 years to fight back and to try to get children back with their parents and save them from that type of demise. I want to give out the phone number. We have quite a few people on the board, and I know that there's a few people here that have their hand raised, and a couple others that have been chatting me while we talk that would like to come in and speak with you and ask you some questions. Tell me, brother, for you to do what you do, how do you make your ends meet? If you're gone, a year and a half, the majority of that out of your home, down on the border, doing what you do, how do you make ends meet if you can't get your funding through GoFundMe?
It's I go it twice a year, and it's almost like in shifts. So I wouldn't be out there for the whole year,
so
to speak. So I do have a full-time job. I come back home. So it's hard to do it 100% of the time. You'd have to be independently wealthy or have a large audience on your GoFundMe.
If you could say one thing to the listening audience to encourage them to join the rest of the militia, and not just in Arizona, but obviously California, New Mexico, and Texas, because you've got a whole lot of people listening to you that are, in fact, from neighboring states to where you are. What would you say to them to encourage them to do the same things that you and some of the other militia brothers and sisters are doing on the border? What kind of advice can you give them to encourage them?
You first have to wake up. As far as politics, you got to know what's going on. As far as joining, you'd have to be in physical shape, good physical shape. Running around through the desert, climbing mountains with 80 pounds of gear on you can be quite strenuous. You got to feel it in your heart. You really do. You have to know what's right and just believe it, no matter what other people say, and that's what gets me through it. I believe it's the right thing to do. This is our country, and we need to stand our ground.
Do you feel your life is in danger every time you go down to do what you do to protect us?
Absolutely. Every day we're out there. Every night we're out there. It's a constant danger. Absolutely.
We've had several reports of over actually 300 incidents where Mexican military and Mexican law enforcement have actually breached border and fired on the American citizens, on border agents, on law enforcement here in America, and on citizens. Have you personally been in an area where you've seen that occur, or that you have other militia brothers and sisters down there that have witnessed those acts being committed?
No, not by any kind of Mexican military or anything. Shots have been fired from the Mexican border, like a high-powered rifle, at us in our direction. Obviously, we'd be too far away, but nothing militarized.
Okay, and the reason that I asked that question is last year we had a report of Mexican military helicopter had actually flown accidentally, if you can imagine that, out of their zone. Yeah, and fired on some law enforcement and citizens there in Arizona at some point. And that's why I was asking you that question. We get a lot of misinformation. Go ahead.
I do remember reading that article, but as far as being me, myself, seen it with my eyes, no, I have not.
Okay, then you know what I'm talking about. And like I said,
Absolutely.
There's a lot of misinformation that's put out there concerning incidents or things that may or may not have occurred. And I always like to try to vet that. They call me the truth stinger for a reason. We try to do our research before we it doesn't always taste good. Sometimes it tastes like crap, but I still deliver it regardless. And sometimes I'm not very eloquent with it. I don't know if you've ever heard of me or followed me. Sometimes I can be pretty foul with my delivery, but today we're going to keep it on an even keel. I'm going to go ahead and give out the number as 929-477-3565, 929-477-3565. Our guest today is Aaron Stair. He is one of the brave and courageous members of the militia groups that we have guarding our borders across the southern sector. He is in Arizona. He's a native Texan who has reached out to travel to help his brothers and sisters down on the Arizona border. And he's doing this out of the goodness and kindness of his heart. He feels it's his obligation or his duty to some degree to go down and try to do everything he can to secure his nation. And God bless you, brother. I want to say thank you for that.
It's my honor.
You know, I know that it takes an incredible amount of courage, endurance, discipline, and definitely God has put in your heart to do the right thing. Let me ask you this. Do you think... No, I'm not even going to ask you how do you think. I'm going to ask you, how do you feel about Jade Helm 15 and the money that is being spent, the degree of God, I mean, for lack of better terminology, I'm just going to have to say the degree of in my opinion, invasion or imposition, unjust imposition being imposed on the people of America through Jade Helm. I mean, they're spending enough money. You know, it has to be billions of dollars in order to put an operation into place called Jade Helm, where they infiltrate the American cities with military, special ops, equipment, helicopters, tanks, MRAPs, militarizing the police departments across the board in America, but they keep telling us they don't have the money to build a secure means on the border of Mexico into America. How does that make you feel to know that they can deploy troops inside America and do a martial law, if you will, exercise on the American citizens in 10 states, covering most of the southwestern quadrant and the Gulf ports, but they can't get you guys some help on the border. Tell me, what are your thoughts on that? Did I lose you? Aaron? We've lost Aaron. Aaron, please call back in, brother. I see that you've dropped off. Please call back in. And it would appear that it's saying that I have several callers on the board, but it appears that it's not going to allow me to pull you guys up to bring you on. So let me just see if I can fix the technical issue that I'm having. Give me one moment, and I'll get right back to you. I can't even put any hold music on. I'm having an issue. Let me see what I can do. I'm going to get on the computer. Bear with me, folks. Obviously, I'm having a technical issue. Of course, it wouldn't be Blog Talk. All right, we've got Aaron back. Aaron is with us. I'm sorry about that, Aaron. Sometimes the government doesn't like what I have to say, and they sure like to mess with our Blog Talk. I've dropped, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 drops on our phone calls, so let's see if we can fix this on the board. Aaron, I don't know if you heard what I was speaking about.
Becky, this is actually the guy from T1SMG. I think I just jumped into your conference call.
Hold on just a second.
I'm sorry, I think I jumped into your conference call. Just call me later.
Hello. Okay. Who's on my line? Tell me who's on my line.
Scott.
Hey.
Scott Ferrarello.
All right, I got Scott, and who else is on my line?
This is Levi from T1SMG. I was calling you reference some training, but I'll call you later as soon as I clear down the conference call.
All right. You caught me in the middle of the show, brother. I appreciate it.
All right, I'm going to back. Thank you.
All right. All right. Let's see if we've got. All right.
Hello?
Aaron, is that you? Aaron?
Are you there?
Hello? Yes. Is this Aaron Stair?
Yes, this is Aaron.
Oh, okay, Aaron. It looked like I dropped. I'm having some tech issues here.
I don't know what happened, but I'm back.
We've got Scott Sorello, who's just joined us. And Scott, say hello to Aaron.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, Scott, Aaron is one of our Border Patrols from Arizona. He's actually a Texan. He travels to Arizona, and he's dedicated much of his last year and a half to that Border Patrol down there as a militia member.
Yeah, I've been listening to the show. I heard the people dropped off, and I didn't want you to be hanging there by yourself.
I appreciate it. I was
check in real quick, but you guys go ahead.
Do you have any questions that you'd like to ask Aaron?
Well, has the government told you could only use like beanbag guns against their AR-15s and AK-47s? I mean, it's pretty much stacked against the Border Patrol. I mean, they're being told that they're not even supposed to report 20 or more illegals coming over. If it's a large group, you're not even supposed to report it. They're now a protected class. Everyone's a protected class unless you're a white Christian. They can't come right out and say we're going to discriminate against white Christians. They give a protected class to illegal aliens, Muslims, gay mafia, everybody except for, white Christian patriots, that sort. But I'm just wondering if they regulated what sort of weapons you can use.
No, they don't. As civilians on patrol out there, Arizona is an open carry state, so we are armed with AR-15 sidearms, and no regulation on that. So we have the upper hand on our equipment. Is 3 times better than Border Patrol. We use night vision. They're stripped of their night vision, and their equipment list is getting smaller and smaller and smaller.
Yeah, that's the whole plan.
They save the Border Patrol. Yes.
And they not only are they flooding the borders, but the reason why you're not seeing many children and women is because, just like Cuba did in the 70s, they are unloading their prisons in all these South American countries and sending them right to America. They're just, sending, they don't have to pay for them anymore. So it's good for their economy, and we have no problem putting them on welfare as long as they, register to vote Democrat.
Right.
I agree, brother, and we're getting the worst of the worst. The 1% of groups that are coming through there are unbelievable. Now, I don't know firsthand on Arizona border. That's why I asked Aaron to the show today. I want to know what's going on in other states. Like I said, and I believe that we lost Aaron in the middle of that conversation, Scott, we've got a government. It's not a government. This is a coup d'etat. We've been taken over. I believe the fatwa is in place. The caliphate is here. We have been taken over. And Scott, you and I both know what I'm talking about when I say that because of the research we've done and the events that are unfolding concerning many issues across the board. But we have a shadow government who has told us for years that they cannot afford to secure the borders. The funds are not there. They're not in place. I know in Texas there's two issues I have with that. Here in Texas, these families that have come across these foreign invaders are given food stamps, free health care, free education. Now they're talking about in-state tuition. They're getting up to $7,500 in return if they file income taxes that they've never even paid into or worked in the U.S. for. The government is giving them up to $7,500. Their supplement is $6,000 a month per family unit. The states are being paid $2,000 per foreign student to sit in a seat, unvaccinated, without knowing who these kids are. Some of them belong to MS-13 gangs, the MS-15, the MS-18. They're in schools with their children now. We just recently had an incident where we had an individual who was 21 years old, enrolled in school as the son of another man, and they were molesting children. I mean, these are the things that are going on, and the American citizens haven't risen up and gone, what the hell, this is bullshit. I'm not going to take this. I'm not going to let this happen to my children. My children are being exposed to diseases, pedophilia, and in some cases even being murdered or beaten on a regular basis, and they're being taken into the drug trafficking trade, prostitution, human trafficking. You know, I mean, the list is huge about what's going on in America that has come through this border and is the end result. But back to the point, millions of dollars every month being pumped into cities, funding businesses and education and allocations for school, and they don't have to follow the same guidelines we do. Let me tell you something. If you're an American citizen, go try to put your kid in school, and if they're not full of the poisons that are pumped into the body by forced vaccination in order to attend school. Why is it that our children are being poisoned purposefully, but they will allow, and they can't go to school if they're not current on their shots, but they'll allow foreign nationals to come in from all over the world bringing in diseases and to sit in a chair next to your children in school? Why is it they can spend billions of dollars on Jade Helm to impose martial law on the people of America and deploy military equipment, military aircraft, munitions, tanks, special operations, across the board, 10 states, the entire southwestern sector of America, but they can't deploy enough to get down there and close our border up. That's what we've been told over the years. For administration after administration have had every excuse why they can't secure the Mexican border. Why is this? What are your thoughts on that, Aaron?
There must be a deeper scheme. There's got to be. I mean, we have the resources. There is money, but it's just not happening. Like you said, it's being put to other things. There's got to be a bigger plan that we just don't know about.
Of course there is, and we do know about it because they've been talking about it for 20 years. It's North American Union. David Petraeus came out 8 months ago and said, what's after America? North American Union. That is zero borders. That's no borders for Canada, no borders for Mexico, one big North American Union. And it's happening right now.
You know, we've seen Obama release terrorists out of Gitmo. I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but the Bergdahl exchange, okay? Every definition of desertion was clear and present. It was evident. Soldiers lost their lives. I think there were 12 soldiers, correct me if I'm wrong, lost their lives, and some others who were injured or crippled for life, trying to find this deserter. And Obama exchanges 5 of the most notorious, dangerous terrorists out of Gitmo in exchange. And if that's not enough, the bastard gave $50 billion, get that number, let that resonate, $50 billion were exchanged with those 5 terrorists that were released for us to get back a Muslim convert, a deserter, an enemy of the state, to bring him back home and have him and his Obama and his father hold a Muslim prayer on the grounds of the White House, praising Allah for his son coming home. For Obama, the Messiah, self-proclaimed Messiah, for bringing a deserter back home and exchanging $50 billion. Listen, if we could exchange $50 billion for one traitor, Don't you think $50 billion would secure a border?
Well, of course, but, they don't do anything we want. We have no representation at all, and haven't for a long time. And, I haven't seen any heads roll since Enron, Before that, it was the savings and loan fiasco. But now bankers just, where they just steal money and nothing happens to them. You have Lois Lerner from the IRS go and lie in front of Congress and nothing happens. I mean, she's still making $130,000 unemployed. That's a pretty good deal. But it's just total lawlessness.
Well, I've got somebody who's had their hand up for a while, and I do apologize. I had some technical issues and couldn't bring them in. Area code 228, I've opened up your microphone. Who's calling? Area code 228.
Hey, Mrs. Becky, it's Matt. How are you going?
I'm doing wonderful, sir. It's a beautiful day in Texas. It'd be an even greater day if on this holy holiday that we're experiencing, we didn't have to face the satanic evil regime that we're having to deal with at this point in time in our lives. Thank you for calling, Matthew. You had your hand up, brother. You have a question for Aaron.
Well, I heard you talking about human trafficking, so naturally I called in.
Absolutely. Aaron, I'm sorry, Matthew, say hi to Aaron and to Scott and tell them a little bit about what you do.
Hey, Miss R. My name is Matt, and I actually moved to the U.S. from Australia to fight American Child Protection Services and the human trafficking of American children.
How's it going, Matt?
Tiring. It's a big job. But, no, with what Mrs. Becky was saying earlier on, you seemed a bit hesitant and a bit in disbelief that the American government would be capable of doing that. But if you look up Bill H.R. 3205, it actually has it written there on the Congress website, the Adoption Incentives Act. And you were talking earlier on about how Arizona was bringing in children across the border. Well, I did see a few mainstream articles about it because I follow that very closely. And coincidentally, around June, July last year, when these 70 to 80,000 children were brought across the border, Arizona Child Protection Services applied for an increase of their budget of $570 million, which was approved.
Wow. Wow. Now, I saw Matthew, I saw reports of some Venezuelan parents who were really pissed off that Obama had their children kidnapped and trafficked into America, and they were in the Hague court trying to file charges for that kidnapping, and they wanted their children back, and they were told that their children could not be located in America.
Well, of course not. Of course they couldn't, because you know how it is. People disappear in the U.S. all the time. But no, with what I was saying, there is no way that can be a coincidence, because when you bring children into a new country, obviously you need somewhere to facilitate them. You're going to need to check them you're going to need to vaccinate them. You're going to need to feed them. You're going to need to find them placement homes. And when you do the math, it sort of adds up.
Wow. We think about the trafficking coming in, but we don't think of it in terms, or at least there hasn't been much discussion held, in terms of our children being taken out of our country to that same border to God knows where.
Well, that's right. That's another big issue. The beginning of last year, I think it was, Glenn Beck interviewed a personal friend of his that owns a team that goes to other countries where the American government has adopted out American children illegally to third world countries, and even places like my country, it's quite easily to adopt from the U.S. But it's gotten to the point where Russia has actually shut down its borders and refuses to allow children that are adopted through their system from the U.S.
Interesting. That's very interesting. Matthew, you're in Texas now, correct?
I'm floating around Texas, yeah.
Okay. And I know that you were in the around the Houston area. I'm going to ask you the same question I'm about to ask Aaron and Scott as well. If you had to give an estimated number in any given venue that you may venture out into the city to, I don't care if it's to have dinner or go to a movie, what would you say you're outnumbered by? Let's just say you were an American, but this is going to sound so prejudiced, and I don't mean for it to. It's just fact, and sometimes it tastes like shit, but I'm going to give it. The truth needs to be exposed. As a white male in any given venue, what would you say the numbers were captively if you were to go to eat? How are you outnumbered, and by what nationality would you say that might be?
Well, everywhere I go, I'm outnumbered by Americans. But if I was an American, it would depend on the venue. Like you said, bars and cinemas and that sort of thing aren't places I regularly visit. As a matter of fact, I'm so busy I very rarely go out at all. But it depends because, are you going by people in the venue that work there? Because if it works there, then I would be almost completely outnumbered.
That was where I was going to go. Okay.
If you're talking about regular consumers and that, I would say 1 to 2/3, depending on where it is. Now, you'll find a lot of them stick around the low-income areas. Now, that's not because they're necessarily low income, but that's because they send a lot of money back to Mexico to help their family or whatever it is they're doing over there.
Okay, so you're greatly outnumbered. I know that the Houston area has a very large influx for the drug cartel. They control a very large part of the communities there. I know that there's been a lot of activity reported, as well as that Houston area now has over 70 mosques and 2 mega mosques, and one being the largest mega mosque in America being built in Sugar Land, which coincidentally they bought over 5,000 acres of prime real estate to put that up, and they paid a mere $550,000 for that land. And I know for a fact that 60 acres undeveloped land that is not zoned commercially goes for $550,000. So just to give you an idea, they want to believe a landowner gave up $50 million.
The closest I've ever gotten to the underground of Texas was standing on the steps of the Capitol building. But I wouldn't notice that sort of thing because in the work I do, I don't generally hang around with seedy characters.
This is fact, and the reason I bring this up is because we have such a large Muslim population that has come across that border. And, Aaron, I think you can attest to this because you've been down there doing what you do. They look like Hispanics. They look like South Americans. If they're not sporting the Muslim beard or burqa, you would not think that they weren't from South America or Mexico. Am I correct?
Yes, it's very hard to tell one's origin if you're wearing blue jeans, T-shirt, and you have a haircut. You can always grow that back out once you get here.
Correct. And
so this is you can't identify
unless you engaged in conversation or you heard it. Aaron,
absolutely.
I had some individual. Well, I'm just going to say it. I had a Border Patrol agent who sent me a flyer that had the ISIS flag on it. It was all in Arabic, but they had it translated. Obviously, Intel translated the flyer, and basically it said, "We are here, we are coming," and then it said ISIS. It had the ISIS flag on it. It said a couple of other things. They were finding these outside of on the ground. They were leaving them with purpose to let us know ISIS was coming in, and there was basically nothing we could do about it. On the other side of the Texas border, just outside of the El Paso area, up around Laredo, they were found strewn just out on the ground, and prayer rugs. Frequently, they find prayer rugs, thousands of these prayer rugs. So they're not being quiet about their interest. They're actually mocking us. Do you have you heard of any of that type of thing in your area, down in the Arizona area?
Debris has been found, but not to that extent of strewed out everywhere.
Okay.
But evidence has been found of prayer rugs, but also could have been, a scarf or something. I'm not going to make excuses for it. It could have been anything, but 99% of the stuff that we see come across is just drugs, 24/7.
Are you finding a lot of, or I say you finding, that's not the proper way to put this. Have you guys had a lot of incidents of dead individuals that have been found in the desert area coming through the border, or even on the other side? Have you had word that you have large numbers of deaths occurring?
Yes, absolutely. There's even signs in Mexico that warn crossing the Arizona desert. It can be extremely dangerous and deadly. So some of these people do go out, they get lost, they don't have the right gear, and they die. Others have been put out into the desert and mountains as punishment. They take them out there, you're lost, you have nothing, they leave you out there to die. So bodies do screw up regularly.
So can I bring up a fair question here, Becky?
Sure.
You're talking about people just walking across the border with drugs and all that. Now, obviously, that's something to be really, really against. But what about young teenagers that are just fleeing the Mexican regime? Why aren't they going through the proper channels to become legal citizens of the U.S.? Because from what I understand from speaking to an immigration attorney, is that if you're a resident of Mexico, then you can come across the border legally.
You can come across the border. It's very costly if it's done properly. I brought some individuals over from London, and it was a very expensive venture. To the tunes, I brought 2 children and their mother. She is stricken with MS and lupus. They're my godchildren, and I flew frequently back and forth to London for 3 years. Was there more than home. I'd stay up to the 90-day point. I'd turn around, come home for 2 weeks, work, go back and help with children, until it became too taxing for me to do that. It was hurting my business. As a business owner, I was struggling, and I couldn't do it anymore. So I sponsored them and brought them here to America to get her children here so that I could help take care of them. She had no one to help her. And the father's a deadbeat father, and it costs literally thousands of dollars. I won't lie to you and try to tell you any different. It is very expensive.
I understand it's very expensive, and here's an argument that I'd like to bring up, and that's because I love a good debate, because I'm an Aussie. But I'd like to bring up a good point is that I see a lot of posts on Facebook and social media of everyone complaining about how much the American government is pouring into Social Security for the Mexicans and everything, that are over here illegally and the health care and everything. Well, why don't they halve that budget and send it to Mexico and make Mexico a better country?
Why should we, the taxpayer, and I'm going to present this to you, why should we, the taxpayer, be taxed with taking care of another country when we have so many homeless, so many families who go without that are actually American citizens who have paid into the system? 1 in 30 children in this country are 1 in 30 homeless. Are children. Yeah,
and the reason that there's 1 in 30 homeless is because, once again, we'll bring up Child Protection Services. They're kids aging out of the system, and there's no programs once they age out of the system to find them a proper home, to give them a proper education. So it's creating this massive cycle of. Yeah, I understand where you're coming from.
Matthew, that would be young adults. We're talking about children. We're talking about under 17 years of age, 1 in 30. And they're American kids. These are not foreign kids, because the foreign kids are being taken care of. Here's my deal.
No.
Why do I want to spend my tax dollars to go to Mexico and take care of them when we're not taking care of our own? That's my point. Why would I do that? Well, that's
right. But what I'm saying is you're doing it anyway, so why not just halve it and put more money back into the American community?
Well, because we're not doing it willfully. See, government has got things. Here's what the American people have allowed. And I'm going to say this, and it's probably going to piss a whole lot of people off, but Scott will understand what I'm saying. And I'm sure, Aaron, you probably understand this as well, because I know that you must be, to some degree, politically educated. Here's my deal. In America, we have allowed our government to rule over us as if they are royalty, okay? We have been a suppressed or oppressed people by allowance, and it's time to fight back. I never, not once, have I received a phone call or an email or a letter in the mail or even a person knocking on my door to ask me anything other than my sex and my age and my race for a census purpose so that they can contort the electoral vote. They never asked me where I want to put my money. $360 billion Obama has spent around the globe to restore mosques. And I've got vets dying that can't be treated in my streets. I've got vets dying that can't be treated in their homes for the conditions of exposure and for being sent into war, into zones where their bodies were poisoned, where they were shot so full of vaccines that caused crippling diseases and shut down their organs and functions, and they're sick. And our government does that with purpose, but not once has any representative asked me, Becky, where should we put our money? Where should we spend our money? How would you like us to do things concerning this or that? And that is how government is actually supposed to operate. They're supposed to operate because they represent me, you see? And we've allowed this to happen. So here we are. We've got to dig ourselves out of this hole that we've allowed them to put us in, the misappropriations of funds, the mistreatment of people, poisoning us with purpose. So Big Pharma can make a ton of money. The diseases that they, with purpose, put into our bodies, they poison our food, they poison our water, they poison our children. I have an autistic grandson, most likely because of the vaccine. I do, and he's going to suffer. He'll never have a normal life. You have no idea how that pisses me off, how angry I became when I realized that this was done to him on purpose, that there's big money in vaccines, there's big money in pharma, there's big money in Monsanto. They don't ask me where I want to spend my money. So here's my deal. I'm pissed off and I'm not taking it anymore. And that's one of the reasons I ran for governor and wanted to break away as a nation, as a new nation, as a republic. Unfortunately, I didn't win, but we're still in the fight. You know, all is not lost until it's all lost. But we are vastly getting to that point. I don't want to put money into Mexico. I don't feel that I need to put money into Mexico. I feel we need to secure the border, and we need to take every illegal, no matter where they're from, that is in my country, sucking off of my system, taking the livelihood from my children and my grandchildren, and they need to get the hell out of America. And that rogue government up there in Washington, every damn one of them is guilty of treason, with the exception of Obama, and he's guilty of espionage because he's not an American citizen. And if he was, he's guilty of tyranny. They need to be removed, they need to be tried, and they need to pay according to that finding for their crimes against us. That is my point. Every time a child dies, every time an American dies at the hands of a foreign national that has come into this country, I'm going to call him a foreign invader because I'm not going to be nice. I'm not going to be politically correct. I'm going to just tell the truth. That is an act of war. But if you and I were in a car and I go and I rob a store and I say, hey, Matthew, drive the car, you just stay in the car, I'm going to go in here, and I go inside, and not only do I rob them, but I murder someone, that's capital crime. It's crime. Capital crime can be punishable by death if they go after me for that. You haven't done anything but drive the car. I get in a car with you, we haul ass, and they catch us. You're going to get that same charge of murder. So is it in fact not true that our government is guilty of murder every time someone loses their life to a foreign national that they've opened that border up to come across? Is that not true? Would the rule of law not be the same?
Well, of course it would be. But, and people like that, like your guests today, are patrolling the border and they're keeping it safe, which is great and fantastic. And they're rounding them up and putting them in the camps I see everywhere, and that's really disturbing. But at what point is everyone going to wake up, Becky? Because it's sad, I actually blocked a bunch of conservatives the other day because, I asked them, what is Ted Cruz's stance on families and the work I'm doing with CPS out of control? And do you know what their response was? Look at the bigger picture. It's not just about children. Well, I'm sorry, but why bother fighting now if the next generation is already gone?
I get you. I understand completely. And it's not that I don't have a heart for... Listen,
how was I not looking at the bigger picture?
It's not that I don't have a heart for other children in the world. I do. I'm a Christian woman. Of course, I do have compassion for them. But I'm not fighting the fight for them. That's their parents' job. It's not my job to pay for another country to make their government do what's right, to make their welfare system function the way it should in order to support those folks over there. I personally don't believe we should have a welfare system for an extended period of time for anyone unless you are elderly or handicapped, truly handicapped. I just don't, because there's ways that you can support a system without creating complete dependence and abuse. And that's my opinion, and I base that on my studies of economics. But here is my absolute: we have to secure the border. We have to assume that responsibility as a nation, not as a few. We've got Brother Aaron Stair, who goes down on that border, Sharon Darrington, Casey Massey, all the folks that we have down there on the borders, dedicating, sacrificing, giving up everything, and in Casey's case, paying a heavy wage for that, being tied up in a federal court system right now for charges that they've trumped up against this gentleman. But we seriously at this point should be so pissed off and angry that we have millions of Americans, not just from Texas, not just from Arizona, not just from Mexico, millions of Americans down on those borders, securing the border. Aaron, you made a valid point to me, and I want to go ahead and touch base on that. You say you go into the Arizona region for a general purpose. There's another reason, sir, and you shared that with me yesterday. And if you could share it with the people, in Texas we have to be invited by landowners. Is that the case in Arizona?
Yes, in Arizona it is the Arivaca, or not Arivaca. It's called the Buenos Aires National Wildlife Refuge, which is public land. Nobody owns it, so it's very popular to pass through. Nobody lives out there, so it makes it for a very porous entry.
See, in Texas, unless you're invited down by a private owner, you can't claim to be anything other than private security for those owners. You can't just go down. They've got our hands tied, and I don't know what the legalities are on that. I disagree with it completely. But you can't just go down on the border, claim to be militia, and just patrol. You have to have an invitation from the landowner, and that's not the case there in Arizona, then.
That's correct. That's not the case at all. Any civilian can go out there, and like I said, they have an open carry. Arizona is all constitutional carry. Hell, you can even have one in the chamber if you like. Not a problem. Texas,
wow.
I hear, is working on open carry. I don't know how far that'll go, but the rules are a lot different.
We actually have open carry in Texas. They're trying to fight us on that. You know, you've got the liberal retards that are out there trying to say that we don't need weapons. They probably don't feel that way after their families have been robbed or accosted. Their lives have been endangered. But, you know, until that happens, you're always going to have people out there that are so ignorant they believe that if they take the weapons of the lawful, that the lawless are going to throw theirs down and commit no crime against humanity, so to speak. But yeah, we're working to get a complete open carry with sidearms. That bill is on the table, so we'll see where it goes from there. Aaron, is there anything else that you really wanted to talk about today? I'm going to give you the floor, brother, and just let you chop it up.
It's been great talking with y'all, and I hope we got some info out there and opened up some eyes. Appreciate all y'all listening in. Maybe a little bit of information, maybe like a little plug. If you could, anyone wants to know a little bit more about us, donate or volunteer, you can go to ArizonaBorderRecon.org, and it'll have a little information about us, volunteer, contact, intel map. It's a good little site, so I'd like to kind of put that out there.
Well, we appreciate it. I've got another caller. I'll just open mic up to 972 area code. They have a question or some input. They have their hand up, area code 972. Who's on the line?
Hello, Becky. How are you doing?
Brother Wilbur, I'm doing good. I'm just fighting through the day, just like everybody else. I'm still alive and kicking. How are you, sir?
Well, this is Doug McDougal.
Oh, Doug, you sounded like Wilbur when you said hello. Hey, Doug, how are you, brother? I apologize. My bad.
Oh, no, it's all good. I just found out about this 10 minutes ago. I've been working in the garden and mowing grass and all kinds of stuff on a beautiful day here in North Texas. I figured I might join in and.
All right.
I figured I might join in and. Well, introduce. I like I said, I've just now picked up the phone and called in. I'm sorry I've missed most of the show. I understand you're in Arizona. I've also been in this border fight, with these illegals coming across the border pretty much nonstop. Actually have had a video handed to the governor and the lieutenant governor of Texas. Right now, just everything I've got, I'm putting at this. Trying to get the attention of the people. And, and I understand, I don't know what y'all have covered yet, but there's two issues when we speak of the border, and both of them are illegal immigration. One of them is, the people that are coyoted in and coming across the water or some means not through the gate. And then the way I've been fighting at this is the people that are actually driving right through the gate or being driven right through the gate in buses. Large amounts of people. Mexican tags on the buses. A lot of them, the MS number on the buses are illegal or they're not accurate. The DOT numbers are not accurate. We've even had one that had stolen tags on the bus that was a vehicle that was stolen out of Hearst. And the tags were on the bus, and they claim they're being checked at the border. Well, if the vehicle has stolen tags, then obviously they're not checking very well. It's Becky, we spoke on this. It's I would say in the thousands every day are being driven across the border. Have spent a lot of time and done a lot of research on this. It all goes back to a company called Southwest Key, if y'all want to look it up. It is a liberal community organizing group. And if you do a research on the people that sit on the board of directors on Southwest Key, you'll find out that their previous job was sitting on the board of directors of Acorn. So all they did when Acorn got all the bad pub, all they did was do a name change.
Wow.
A lot of the government is government contracts. If we remember right after the election, there was some little bit of buzz came out about some advertisement that the U.S. government and Homeland Security was looking for transportation, companies that could handle transportation from the southern border, whether it be through the air, busing, trains, any means. They were looking for companies to sign on to a contract. It got a little bit of buzz, but that was just about it. It got squashed. Just like everything else that has any backing or any truth to it, it usually gets crushed and squashed. We've done some research. One of these companies, I believe it was Santiago Tours, we went all the way back. Actually had a person that pretended to be a potential investor in the company and got a list of the people sitting on of that company, that bus company's board of directors, and none other than Dianne Feinstein sat on the board of directors. So people, we need to realize that we're not only allowing the border to be wide open and people to infiltrate our country, we're actually paying for it. We are transporting these people. They are being shipped to Chicago. They are being given everything they need in Chicago to move out throughout the country from there, but they're given all their work permits, they're given all their identification that they might need. They're actually being given avenues to get grants or loans. A lot of these people are senior citizens. I have hundreds of still pictures, lots of videos out there on the internet, but they're being set up to file for disability as senior citizens. A lot of the people that I video or interview on these buses that are stopping here in Rockwall, Texas, are above 50. They're not young working force or, farm labor or any of that. They're going to Chicago. They're filing for disability. They're getting their money. It's happening, folks. It's happening.
That's so discouraging. Go ahead,
Are you there, Becky?
True. Yeah.
Yes, sir, I am. That is so discouraging. That is so discouraging. Aaron, are you seeing evidence of large busloads coming through in your area?
No, the area I'm in, we're all on foot, and there are no roads. So it's 100% on foot. There's no way you could even drive anything through that area. It'd be rough just to even get a four-wheeler through there.
Wow. Okay,
so it's
well,
100% on foot.
No, we're having them, Aaron, listen, for probably 2 years, I've got my bank account set up where it's donating to the border cause on GoFundMe. It's not much, but every month it's yanked out of my account. I've been supporting you guys for the last couple of years that all of this has really came to a head. I appreciate everything y'all are doing down there. I'm a Marine vet. I'd love to get down there, but I see plenty of places here I can fight and bring attention to what, the other side of this. The numbers may have dropped, supposedly throughout the winter down at the border, the crossings, but they're just getting on buses, folks. I mean, it has really, really happened. These people, and they're not being picked up. And I've recently, like I said, one of my videos got handed to the governor of Texas and the lieutenant governor. While I was down there, a lady spoke at a get together we had on the south steps of the Capitol, and her and her daughter were driving through Arizona. And they passed, and there was probably about 25 or 30 people in the middle of the freeway, the median in the middle of the freeway. And she thought, what are they doing? They all look, wore out, and they had, their T-shirts over their heads and stuff like that. And so she was looking in her mirror, and no more than she looked back in her mirror, and as she passed them, as a bus was behind her, and the bus pulled over, and the people ran around and loaded onto the bus. I went and got the representative of our lieutenant governor and said, "You need to hear this story." I went and found that aide, and said, "You need to hear this story from this lady." And they're picking them up as they see them. I mean, this is an operation that is going on in large form. There's probably at one location here in North Texas on I-30 that there's 6 to 10 buses every day that pull in. And this is not a bus stop. This is a gas station. And they pull in and they refuel, and then they head on their way. I've also got a good friend of mine up in Tennessee on the path to Chicago from here, and he caught the bus at the Social Security office where they were being handed brand new passports, all the paperwork, the work permits, everything. The folks, they had made it all the way to Memphis, Tennessee before they received any of this paperwork. I just really don't. I like I said, I got in late on this conversation. Don't know where y'all were taking it, and I hope I'm not stealing anything from where y'all were going. I just want people to know what's really, really going on out there. This is going on every day.
That's being funded by the Department of Homeland Security, by the way.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
I know. And like I said, Homeland Security is the one that put out the advertisement via the internet. This has been several years ago now, 3 or 4 years ago. And they put out the advertisement looking for these companies to transport. And understand, these companies that were hired with these, there were people that went out and spent the money and bought a busing company, a small tour busing company, just because they knew they were going to get these government contracts. All of these buses that are headed north or away from the border are all full. All the buses that are headed south, I don't care. I have recorded this. Out of 150 or 200 buses that I've came into that are headed south, one bus had 3 people on it.
Okay.
One bus had 3 people. All the buses, and if you know anything about transporting or anything, there is no way that they can function financially doing deadhead for 50% of their trip. You just cannot do it. Deadhead means you're hauling an empty load. You're not being paid, without passengers on a bus. All of these buses are going one direction, away from the border with people. As they go back, they are completely empty.
Yep.
I spoke with one of the 3 people I saw on a bus headed south, and he explained to me, he was in Chicago, is where he lived now, and he was headed south to go get his mom and dad. He said they won't come here on their own. So there you go, folks.
Hey, Doug, would you tell the folks about the ad that's being run on the Mexican stations, radio stations? That you told me about?
Yeah, it happened about 3 weeks ago. Somebody was running an ad on a local Dallas Hispanic radio station, and the ad was that if they get here before, I believe it was before August, or October, that they would be able to file for their 2015 income taxes and receive is from $3,500 to $7,500. This was called and reported to me. I've been on a local radio station here in Dallas called the Ben Ferguson Show, a half a dozen times. And somebody with that show called me and said, this is what happened today. Now, whether the information, whether they can file their taxes and get an income tax return, what it was a call to get here. If you want to make some real fast money, get your butt here. Whether it's true or not doesn't matter. The rumor is spreading like wildfire through the Hispanic community. I mean, get your people here and get them here now. The government is going to give you money for every person you have here.
The problem is, Matthew even mentioned it, and I let him say it without trying to coach him in that direction. I wanted to hear the truth about another area. And the jobs are being taken. Right now, the census is in Texas and across the board in the southern sector of this country, Hispanic men out-employ by 12% American men.
Well, yeah, businesses get a $5,000 bonus if they hire an illegal alien over a citizen.
Correct. No insurance have to be provided, no nothing. You don't have to match Social Security, all of this. They're just hire the illegal.
Well, we're losing jobs, and the numbers are being inflated or deflated for political purpose, and it doesn't matter what the number is, whether it has to do with projection of, economy or unemployment or, jobs created. They lie about all of it. The mass majority of the jobs that have been created have been governmental, or they're foreign invaders that are being employed. I can go into any store, any restaurant, and many of them can't even speak English. You try to talk to them, they can't speak English. We're starting to see Mexican advertisement on regular channels, not on the Mexican cable channels, but on the regular television channels here. They're starting to do advertisements in Spanish for the Hispanic population. By God, this is America. If you can't speak English, you need to be enrolled in a course somewhere where you can acclimate not only to our language, but to our ways of living. We're seeing it turned into Little Mexico, basically, where I live, or I'm surrounded by Muslims, I'm surrounded by Hispanics and South Americans, and I'm outnumbered 1 to probably now 300 to 400 people, and that's not an exaggeration, folks. That's the absolute truth. I can walk into a grocery store. I'm one of 5 white people in the grocery store, and I'm not trying to make this a racial issue. I'm simply stating facts. We're in trouble. The white Judeo-Christian in America and across the globe, it doesn't matter if it's in Australia, it doesn't matter if it's England, it doesn't matter if it's Europe, anywhere. We are being targeted, and they are trying to erase our abilities, much like the shows I've done coming out of South Africa with Sunette Bridges talking about the white genocide, where they're pushing them out of the job sector into squatter camps. They're doing the same things here. They're pushing us out, and they're trying to create a homeless or destitute population that can die in the streets of hunger and disease or be victims of a crime that costs the demise, of that individual. We can no longer stand and allow this to happen. And God bless you, Matthew, if you're still listening. I understand your sentiment, brother, and I know you come from a foreign land and you came to America to do a great thing. But to imply that we should send our money to another country to buy them off so that they don't invade our own is just bullshit, in my opinion. I don't owe Mexico anything. I owe the citizens of America. I owe my grandchildren. I owe the children of the folks who are born here, who have every birthright here to thrive. Our industry has been given away. 75% of our small to medium businesses are now owned by immigrants. That's not a number I fabricated. It's one that came off the .gov site. For whatever reason, in the year 2012, when Obama was reelected, and I'm laughing, when he was placed again in his position, they quit doing, the Bureau of Statistics has stopped doing analysis for us to go view. So this is the 2012 numbers that I'm giving you. At that time, it was 65 to 70, and now I estimate 75%, but possibly more than that because of the influx of the foreign nationals coming in. They are not only giving those benefits to those foreign nationals coming across that we've spoken about, they are also giving them money to open a business where you and I are excluded from those special fund programs. They're giving them to the colored folks. They're giving them to the foreign nationals. They're giving them to the Muslims. And by the way, there are privatized bills where Muslims do not pay any taxation, personal or business taxes. You can look it up. It's on the site, the .gov site. There's also a prioritized bill for them, a privatized bill, that excludes them from any interest on loans, and specifically for the Muslims, because according to their so-called cult religion, they are not to be taxed.
Sharia banking.
Exactly. So the boat has been given away. Your children's future and prosperity has been given away. We're being poisoned. We're being invaded. And the individuals like Aaron who have taken the time to go down there on that border and try to secure that border for me and my family, brother, I'm in debt to you. Anything I can do to help you, I will assist you in any way possible. And I want to say with all my heart, I can't even express my gratitude for your courage and your tenacity to do this for a year and a half for me and my family.
Well, I appreciate that. That's very kind of you, and at the same time, it's my honor, and I feel it's my duty.
Well, God bless you, brother. I really appreciate everything you've done for me and for mine and for this country. Scott, God bless you, man. I know that you're kicking butt on a daily basis. I watch your threads. I listen to you when you're on your show, and I want to thank you for coming on to my show and helping me today. You're an amazing individual, and I'm so blessed to have you in my company. And Doug, man, you are just a plethora of knowledge. I enjoy you as well. I want to thank my listeners. Doug, I'd like for you to come back on the show with Scott one evening, and let's talk a little bit more about what's going on. But before I cut this off, I have a question for you that I didn't get to ask yet from you, Doug. How do you feel about the shadow government, the DOD, and the Pentagon putting all this money into the Jade Helm operation across the country, and they still continue to tell us that the acts of war that are being committed against us off that border are not something that they can fund or finance to stop? They will not employ.
I have a real good friend of mine that is a huge donor to the governor of the great state of Texas, and a phone call was put in with from that donor after I spoke with him, and the disgust was shared with the governor that permission was given. Understand that this Jade Helm 15 operation that's going to take place July 15th or July through October, the military had to request permission to operate on private land, on state land. They do not have that under our Constitution. They cannot. They have no jurisdiction there to operate or train. So they went to the governors of these states and requested permission, and permission was given. Now, folks need to be prepared for this. They're having town hall meetings right now with communities, explaining to these communities that they are going to be in unmarked vehicles and civilian clothes. You're not going to know the criminal from the military. I want a lot of people to think on this, and you've got some time, but I want you to think on this. What they have tried to do is to get us to uprise. They have attempted it in Ferguson. They have attempted it in different locations to get the American people, the patriots, to finally say this is enough. And they haven't got it from us. They have not had a large group of people say no, stop. I mean, a couple of little places where they stopped a bus in California, or the Bundy deal, or a few things have happened here and there, but they have literally went out of their way to pay protesters to be on location to try and instill this anger and animosity to come out in patriot Americans, and they haven't got it yet. I think this Jade Helm is by design to see if they can get us fired up. So be careful, put a lot of thought into it, read, pay attention, find out where these, in your communities, where these town hall meetings are being held by the military. They are meeting with the mayors and city managers of these cities, and they're coming together to tell people, hey, don't worry, y'all are gonna see a lot of, we're gonna land in the middle of the street, we're gonna have this operation going on. It's going to be in the middle of the night. It's, folks, just keep your head low. Don't get fired up. I think that's what they're wanting out of us. They have tried everything else, and I think this is one. They're getting down to their last card on trying to get us to get irate. And to throw up something so that they can do a preemptive or a training martial law-like event, even in a small region or community. What's that?
Well, look what they did in Boston.
Exactly.
It was martial law there.
It was martial law when they were
thought,
looking for the bombers. And I have no doubt that the bombers were probably, put into place by the damn CIA. I mean, they want to see the reaction of the American people. They want to see how we are going to react if they do this, how we are going to react as a group. You have to understand, 380 million people. That's, if you actually got the majority, or a small percentage of the people to stand up and rise up, there is nothing that could stop it. The American people still have the control and the power in the United States. They just don't come together. We are united. We need to be united.
But don't you find it odd that they can spend all this money in the southwestern quadrant for these operations to cover an entire friggin' state with special operations, military equipment, and how would it better be utilized if you're going to invade the state of Texas with that bullshit, pardon my language? Why don't you deploy it down on my friggin' border and stop the bullshit? Why don't you bring your military special forces and your equipment and all this money you're going to spend and stop the influx on my border, allowing terrorists and foreign nationals to invade my country and to come in and kill American citizens, rape our children, bring in drugs, commit crimes against humanity, to rob, steal, and pilfer, and extort money from me as a taxpayer under the guises of a welfare program under some bullshit humanitarian crisis that the pig and thief in Washington has created with the UN.
Okay, Becky, while I was in the military, I trained in desert training. I trained in Arctic training because those scenarios were probable. We could have had a situation in Siberia, in Russia. We could have had a situation, obviously, in the desert. Why are we training our elite forces of our military in a martial law training operation?
Because
now,
that's what they intend to impose.
Right. I also have, two reports, one from a DPS officer and one from a soldier's mother, that the soldier, a gate guard at a military base, the young man called his mother and said, "Hey, Mom, watch your head, because I just inspected a semi-load of signs that say martial law in effect. Everything from handheld signs to building banners to the semi was completely full." The first report I got was last September, and it was directly from a DPS officer. And the DPS officer inspected the load of a Hispanic gentleman that couldn't speak English. He inspected the entire load, ran him through the ringer like DPS officers should do, and the truck was hauling a load to Washington, D.C. that was full, that said martial law is in effect. Those are two instances that I have ran it across. And I've got the reports directly from the people that got them. This is not hearsay.
You're a soldier, okay? You're a soldier. Regardless whether you're retired, you'll always be a soldier. I mean, period. That's who you are.
Once a Marine, always a Marine.
Always a Marine.
It's in me.
You're correct. Okay. So my point is this. We spend trillions of dollars, and we know they create the wars. We know it funds the fat cats at Halliburton and the changing of the guard for borders that are moved and resources and governments removed that aren't on board with the status quo for the individuals that actually run the world. We know this. So here we are in America. This is war. We are actually at war with a foreign country. The minute the first individual was murdered, harmed in any fashion, shape, or form, from a foreign national coming across that border, that is actually a declaration and an act of war. We are at war in America, period. And our own damn government, who wages wars across the globe, cries out they're there to protect people because of crimes against humanity, goes in and removes and murders dictators across the globe, will not deploy armed forces at our own foreign border to stop the bullshit. This has got me mad. This has got me angry. I'm furious. I'm livid about what's going on in my own country. And I know you're a soldier. You understand what I'm trying to say.
I do. And my son just got out of the Air Force, and he was in intelligence. He was in Presidio. He was also in Korea. Well, I don't know. He was in some locations. But he just got out, and some irony to this is when I got out, Ronald Reagan signed my DD-214, and Barack Obama signed my son's DD-214. So there you go on how far this country has moved in a short period.
Ouch.
Yeah, I apologized to my son. I said, sorry about that, son. I apologize for
Becky. I don't know
what
why
he had to
surprises you so. I mean, all you have to look at is the DHS manual on who the enemy is now, and that's Tea Partiers, patriots, right wingers, Christians, and everybody that this country was basically built on. I mean, even the Army's own manual says someone like George Washington wouldn't even be a welcome in it anymore. He created it. So, their whole agenda is to flood the country with as many illegals, and just like the buses you were talking about, they have just as many planes bringing them in, and they even have a contingency plan in case, say, Congress actually got a spine and decided to go against it and close the borders. They just give them refugee status like they do all the Muslims.
Well, they have to overrun us to overtake us because we're armed. But, and there's another argument that I'll have all day long with anybody is half the people who are claiming their Second Amendment rights don't even know what the hell it was written for, because if they did, we wouldn't be having this discussion on my Blog Talk radio show today.
I just mowed my grass. With a 9mm on my side, so I don't belong to that group. I don't belong to that group you're talking about.
I know, but you know what I'm talking about. You hear them bitching and moaning, but you only see a few like Aaron and the literally, seriously, we could probably, honest to God, say maybe we have on a regular basis from the 1,200-mile strip in Texas all the way to California, we probably literally have full-time dedicated border militia people down there that are less than 2,000 total. That's a fact. That is sad. That is a sad, sad fact that we don't have enough citizens who understand what the Second Amendment means, who understand what the rights are, who understand their state constitution, their state Bill of Rights, who understand how government is actually supposed to operate, and what ours, not only our obligation and duty, but our right as an individual to thrive in a safe environment. They won't move. They won't get up. They won't do anything to assist. You know what? When we give a glass of water to a foreign invader, that is actually an act of treason. It's stated as such. When we do anything, yes, sir, when we do anything to assist, and it also states that if the individuals in charge of government do that it is the police enforcement's duty to arrest that said individual, and if in fact they do not, it is a federal felony under the U.S. codes for their dereliction of duty to do so.
There's no rule of law anymore, okay? I mean, this administration stomps on the Constitution and breaks federal law every day, and they laugh about it.
Well, if we don't do something, ladies and gentlemen, if we do not stand up and we do not stop allowing, it's like telling your kid, if you do that again, I'm going to ground you. Now, I mean it. Stop doing that. I'm not going to tell you again. Listen, how many times have I told you, and you just keep going on and on and on and on, you're never going to have a child that's disciplined enough to understand where the authority is and how this house is run, who is in charge. If we continue
Becky, it's like every time you tell your kid you're going to ground him, your kid kicks you in the crotch. All right.
Yes,
I mean,
sir.
it's more extreme than that. He's slapping or spitting at you when you say, "Don't do that again." He's like, "F you," you know.
Exactly,
it's total rebuttal. I mean, they have accomplished in taking us to the point in the eye of the idiot American that we are extremists and that we are making all of this up and that none of this is really going on. And so now anybody you try to talk to, my neighbors, my company, my family, well, I got my family behind me, but most people you try to talk to, they just look at you as you've lost it. You've lost your handle and you've gone too far. I have to sit them down and say, listen, I haven't gone far enough.
Thank you.
You know, if I told you everything I know, if you would commit me.
That's fact. That is a fact. I think that we're at a point of no return, in my honest opinion, and I'm damn sure not going to go down without fighting 100% to the last breath for the freedom that I was. You know what? Freedom to me is not the Constitution and what is written in it. Freedom to me is what is given to me by my God, my Creator. My freedom in this world was not given to me by a man or woman. My freedom to live and thrive and to prosper, even as my soul prospers, was not given to me by some idiot at the end of a pen.
No, but that freedom was protected by a man.
Supposed to protect it.
Yes, it was.
Right.
Amen.
And
Amen. Protection of that right.
It was to protect us from the government and tyranny, and that's why the Second Amendment was number 2, because it was kind of an important one.
You think?
Folks, I have to run. I got a house full of company. Aaron, thank you so much. I'd like to talk with you more. Becky, hey, folks out there, listen. Take care of your family. Take care of your community. Take care of your country. If you don't, they are here. They are moving things into place. They are going to do all that you think they could do. They are going to do. You need to curb this. You need to stop this. You need to start paying attention. It is going to happen. Whether you believe it or not, it is going to happen. Folks, I got to go.
I love you. I love you,
y'all. God
Happy
bless
Easter.
America.
God bless you too, brother.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right. That was Doug. That was Doug McDougall, and he is a trusted partner, a patriot, and a friend. And God bless him for coming on. I've got about 90 seconds, so Aaron, I'm going to turn this over to you, brother, and let you go ahead and give a plug again. And I want to thank you for coming on and sharing the information that you've shared with us today. Again, I can't thank you enough.
It's my pleasure, and it's an honor to be on the show. I really appreciate the invite, and like I said before, I'll say it again. I hope it wakes a few people up and just opens some eyes. God bless America, and I hope everybody's out there listening and paying attention. If you'd like to do something or volunteer or make a donation, please look up ArizonaBorderRecon.org. It's a great group of people.
All right, Aaron, and for the folks out in Arizona, I have a business partner. We have 28 miles of beach on Matagorda Island. We are a military-grade training camp. We hire vets first. We hire the cream of the crop. They train in food, fire, water, shelter, long and short-range shooting, endurance, field medic. We have a basic 1 EMT program as well that's state accredited. We have communications, situational awareness. Jesus Christ, it cut me off. You fucker.
I still hear you.
I apologize. It cut me off. Yeah. I'm sorry about the F word, but it cut us off. We are dead in the air now. But anyway, we have it's called BOSS. It's a military grade training camp. We're just opening up. We're about to have our first soft opening. We have formed a marriage with a company out of Boston that has some of the most elite individuals from the military that are vets that are going to be training on the island with us. And with that said, I want you to know that we're trying to do everything we can to contribute, give back to the veteran community, and to train people up. Our mission is to train proficient first responders who come out to the island. They will leave proficient in first response, whether it's a man-made or natural disaster. And hopefully that's going to give the people more skills and more people the skills to come out and help on the border issues.
Good deal. That sounds wonderful.
Well, God bless you again. I want to thank you for coming on.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
All right. Well, they're not going to hear the F-bomb that I dropped on the end of the show because they disconnected us from the show, and it dropped everybody but you. Thank God you're still on. I think it's because I tied you into the call. You have a blessed afternoon. All right, brother. All right, bye-bye. It cut me off in the middle of the daggum show. It gave me 90 seconds, but then it cut me off.